I don't know if any of them were actually like in a church. Like, I don't know if any of the marriages were forced. I really don't know anything about the marriages. But something that I just found out that really deeply troubles me is that on Instagram, Tight Eyes is pretending like he's married to Kendra. Did you know that Tight Eyes is still married to another woman? He's literally married to another woman. Yeah, he has a wife that doesn't have a divorce yet from him. I just talked to that wife. And that wife hasn't gotten the formal filing done. So you're not married. Nobody believes you. And that poor wife has a child that's 4 that has limited contact with his dad. The one thing, you guys, that really concerns me with this group is that I think I think every single one of these marriages is fake. The reason why I think the marriages are fake is because Miranda and B-Dash have provided different stories for their wedding. I spoke to B-Dash's ex-wife, and their marriage was arranged. And according to her, he's not the most assertive kind of guy. And she's like totally shocked that he would get involved in something like this again. And nobody can verify that these two even have married, because he told his son that they got married in August of 2020. And his mom and Miranda's mom says there's absolutely no way that's possible. So Miranda says, yeah, we're married, doesn't give a date, uses COVID. There's no marriage licenses anywhere. If you search Miranda's name, it doesn't come up as Derek. There's nothing in the courts for a legal change of name. So she's only Miranda Derek on social media. I do find it curious that the church is invite only. I find it curious that they don't have very much of a public presence. I do find it curious that every single time something is found, they're deleting things. They're deleting, like, if you stand by your church and your worship music, why are you deleting your worship music? If you stand by your church and your belief systems, why is your church website private? And so, like, bare bones, if you stand by what your church is doing, why is it invite only? Why is there a gate around it? There's just a lot of like very questionable things that most churches out front in this world don't do. They said that they're waiting to open to the public until their construction is complete. Interesting. Westboro Church is like super, super small. Like 20 people, maybe 25 people, and it's all family members. It's a super, super small church. That's really why I've never looked at it, and they don't have a huge presence anymore. There's other like churches that are doing worse at this point. Somebody asked, like, why don't I touch Scientology? To me, like, why would I touch Scientology when Leah and Mike are exposing the shit out of it every single day? Like, people know, if you want to learn about what Scientology is doing, all you have to do is watch Leah's show. You can watch all the different documentaries that have been made about Scientology. There's better people that can do it. Do you need someone besides Leah to expose them? Don't you think Leah, with her fame, is at pretty much the highest level you can get when your best friend is Jennifer Lopez? I mean, you really cannot get more famous than that. So you have the upper echelon of like celebrity exposing that. They have the platform they need. They've had the shows that they needed to expose. And I think that Leah does a really good job. And I respect her place. I respect her position. I respect all the work they've done. And she was on the inside, so she has the perspective of being a former member. Mike, having been like the public relations person, totally understands how Scientology works. Yeah, Leah does a good job. So Kelly, why are you asking me a question about a post from 2019 that's tagged on Kelly's page? Why does that, I don't get it. Why do you keep asking that question? Is that like, are you trying to shame Kelly? I don't understand. Like, if it's a post from 2019, why would she delete it or remove it? They didn't know what was happening at that time. They also have posts where they say that they love James. Should they delete those now that they're in today's position? You don't really know what you don't know from years ago. And, you know, if you think about it, it's kind of like the frustration that we've run up against with the IBLP. Like, think of all of the victims of Bill Gothard and all of the women that have accused him of sexual harassment or, you know, fondling or, you know, sexually inappropriate contact alleged. And think of how those victims have never gotten justice. They were never, no charges were ever filed. Their lawsuit ends up getting dropped because some of the things fall outside of the statute of limitations. Think of how like those guys are doing really atrocious things, and their teachings about rape and sex are so abusive, and yet nothing has actually come from those people. And it's just the really sick deviants within the group that end up getting arrested and charged, like Josh Duggar. Do you want more people to fall into a situation like this, or would you rather not? I guess marriage licenses are not online in the state of California, so I don't know. You'd actually have to like contact their county and then order a copy. And you can't just like order a copy of somebody else's marriage license in California. The church definitely changed. Like, as I've been learning more about this church, it seemed to it's gone through different like iterations of the same thing. Like, it starts in 94, and I think there's like a split in 95, and then there's another split, and then there's another split that's a big split in 2008. And it used to be primarily, Korean and Chinese immigrants, or, you know, staying within the Korean community. And they sort of shifted at some point and wanted to move towards entertainment. And I think that happens around 2012, 2013. There's multiple wives. I mean, that's also an undisputed fact. Like, there's a wife from Canada, there's a first wife, or there's another wife here that has 2 kids with. There's a third wife. There's some sort of overlap alleged where he's still married to one and potentially dating another. There's allegations that were, you know, about massages that came up in this lawsuit that I don't think they ever discussed I didn't see it discussed at all in the court findings. So I don't know if it was just like they just didn't go into it or not. And then there's another wife. There's a divorce of the third wife, but the third wife stays with the family even after they divorce. They did find that she gifted them Mercedes Benzes. So here's the thing, like, everyone's ability to give money to other people is their own. And you know what sucks is that when you fall victim to someone who is, you know, doing questionable things, which the court found some of his behavior to be manipulative and self-serving, it's hard sometimes to admit that, like, you were had, and being manipulated isn't a crime. and that sucks. So that's why in these cases you want to make sure that you're like telling people, avoid this kind of behavior in the future. I mean, the records in the court are all there. There's all these different businesses. There's depositions that were filed that, in his own words, say things. Certainly, I wasn't there for any of these things. There's business records that show he's the CEO of all these different companies, that he's also a spiritual leader and a mentor to these people. So if you look at the standards for pastors, it's not ethical to also serve as a business leader and a business mentor when you're also being the spiritual leader, because it's easy to cross. I think the families are going to do what they need to do. I think a lot of the family members want to keep their conversations. They want to keep the lines open. They don't want to create a spectacle. They don't want to fight back. Just because someone isn't saying something publicly doesn't mean they're not feeling something privately. You just have to know that it's bigger than her. If there's any investigations, here's the thing is, I know I have been approached by probably a dozen production companies to which I've declined. And there's so many people that are looking into this that you can't stop a moving train. So there's people I don't even know that are investigating this. You've got, I know for a fact that the New Yorker, the New York Magazine, is doing a piece on this because 3 people have told me they interviewed with them. I know Business Insider is working on an investigative piece as well. You've got all these different outlets digging in and looking at the same stuff that I'm looking at. And everyone's sort of coming to the same conclusion that there's something not right here. I mean, nobody is getting more beat up than the Wilkins. And I think, I think one thing I would suggest, Dr. Grande did an analysis of the situation, and he's a mental health counselor. I think he has a PhD. I don't know that he's not a psychologist, but he is a mental health counselor. And he actually did an analysis of the situation. And he, at the end of his video, had some really good suggestions about, how do you help someone get out of a cult? What are the warning signs of a cult? And he even explained how there's a lot of these groups that have gotten just so sophisticated that overtly they're doing horrible things. Some of these groups are led by narcissistic people that are very outright abusive in how they're treating people, but they're not doing anything outwardly illegal. And so it's not illegal to be a fucking jerk, So really the take home for him was, how do you avoid it? You have to be really mindful of what people are telling you. You have to you have to put yourself in a situation where you're not being told it's all one thing and ignoring everything else, not abandon critical thinking. I think he said making sure that you remember what's happening out here in the world. And one thing that he made a really, really good point about that I thought was really valuable is just reminding these people how much better it is out in the real world. There's a whole world out here where everyone loves you, and everyone's here and they want to be with you, and you could have all kinds of success and so much freedom, and you could still be doing the same types of deals. You could still be with the same people and have the same friends, but you could do it under your own terms. You could actually find management that would allow you the freedom to explore your life and support you along the way, and also encourage you to have the same relationships with your friends and family. I think anyone that's trying to separate you from the people that you love and change who you fundamentally are, that's a warning sign. And so, it's reminding someone that you have all these people out here that love you, and that nothing was so scary out here. It wasn't that horrible. You've been conditioned to believe that everyone is dangerous when they're really, in fact, not. I haven't had this big moment with the Wilkins, and there's not this connection where we speak or anything like that. I can only go off what people tell me about them. And I will say that in any interaction that I've seen with their posts or any of their friends that I've talked to, it's all the same. They were a loving family that just really loved each other and were supportive of Miranda. And I don't think it's, in my opinion, the sign of a controlling parent, if they're truly controlling, would not be yes, you can move to California and have your own apartment, and I'll help pay for you, and I'll support your dreams, and then I'll live in Michigan. I mean, think of how closely monitored Jim Bob Duggar is with his kids, and how they don't get to move, and how he doesn't want them to leave, and he wants to have them underneath his control constantly, and how he has all the boys working for him, and he wants everyone to still go to him for everything. That's what a controlling narcissistic parent does, in my opinion. They control every aspect of someone's lives. They're certainly not saying, go move to Hollywood and I'll help you with an apartment and I'll support your dreams. That's not a controlling parent. You can obviously have problems with your family. No family's perfect. All of us struggle in family relationships. No parent is perfect. Every parent has lost their temper. I'm sure every parent has said things to their child that they regret. Every parent, if they could look back in time, would do things differently, or maybe have made a different decision. And there is a point for a lot of people, I think, that when you enter into a certain place in your 20s, there is that push for wanting to become uniquely who you are, separate from your family. And that is a normal part of growing up. But this was such a drastic change. And that was really the point that Dr. Grande made, was that when something drastically changes very fast and it happens to coincide with involving oneself in a group, that's really when you want to have your alert up. And I think you just don't ignore the voices of other people that have spoken out. You don't ignore the people that have said things. But again, I'm used to being threatened. I think the one thing I will say about, they said, she's sued constantly. Okay. So I was sued by a woman named Tati Westbrook, and that case actually was dismissed in the court. And it was dismissed because she sued me in the wrong city or the wrong jurisdiction. And then she was going to come to the right jurisdiction, but by the time she came to my jurisdiction, we had counterclaims against her. And so instead of litigating of her suing me and me suing her, we did mediation. And through the mediation, we learned that I did not defame anyone. So, that's part of litigation, is very expensive. And sometimes people sue you. It's unfortunately part of, I actually just got off the phone earlier, this week, with someone from a major outlet, and they're being sued along with their entire publication for defamation for a piece they did about a huge guy that's part of some huge podcast. So journalists getting sued, or reporters getting sued, bloggers getting sued, that's kind of one with the territory. So really it's just, and then who was the other thing? Oh, and I am being sued by Todd Chrisley of Chrisley Knows Best. But again, his lawsuit goes into very vast details of a dispute that he has with his daughter. And that dispute was something that she shared on Dr. Phil, to which I reported on. And beyond that, like, there's really nothing, there's no basis for what he's claiming. And he's also partly, like, her allegations against him had to do with a criminal indictment that he's still facing. So he is being, he's going to court in May, and he's facing a 12-count indictment. I don't believe all 12 counts are charged against him, because there's 3 people that were indicted together. So the full indictment is 12 counts. And it's a vast a variety of crimes, from wire fraud to bank fraud to tax evasion, conspiracy to defraud the United States. There's like a contempt or a obstruction charge, but for one of them, not Todd. So, you know, he's got his criminal trial in May. And all of that is he's innocent until proven guilty. He was just re-indicted. That's kind of where they're at with that. But we did file a motion to dismiss because I don't think he's got any grounds for it. And the courts in Minnesota are extremely backed up. I don't know what is going on with this Teen Mom fans page. I don't know this person. I don't speak to them. I don't know why they would sue me, being that I haven't talked to them in like years. In this line of work, you can't really control what people do. I haven't said anything about Aubrey. Whatever the dancers say, you just have to kind of remember, like, we don't know where it's coming from. If I were the IRS, I would be looking into all those businesses. I have not said this. Here's a little bit of information for you if you'd like some. Tight Eyes is not divorced from his first wife. So he was married in 2006, and I'm not going to say her name. She's not a public figure, and they never divorced. They were married when they were in the first cult that they were in, and he has never divorced that woman. I don't know any details about the second wife, and I don't really know if they actually married or if they didn't marry. She did file documents, but I don't know how, I don't really know. But I know factually that the first wife and him are not divorced. Tight Eyes is pretending like he's married to Kendra. Did you know that Tight Eyes is still married to another woman? He's literally married to another woman. Yeah, he has a wife that doesn't have a divorce yet from him. He's married to Kendra if he still has a wife. I just talked to that wife. Reno was not in the other group. Reno was actually just friends with them, I guess. He was here from, I think his family's out on the East Coast. I'm not totally sure. I know he had been teaching in New York. If you go to like his old profiles, I think they're Catholic. His family's Catholic. I don't know like what his story is. I originally thought that he was the first one that was introduced to the group, but that's actually not true. It was James that was the first one that was introduced. And I think a bunch of them lived with Matt Stefanina. And it was while they were living with Matt, I think some of this happened. But Matt is actually not involved in this at all. The first wife has not spoken out. James's first wife did. I'm not sure what is going on with Isaiah. All right, so I'm going to go, but I just wanted to share that document from the court records from September 29th, 2011. And yes, I will post this live. So stay safe out there. If someone tells you they're a prophet from God and that you should obey them. No, Tight Eyes is not James. His name is Cesare. It looks like Caesar, but I think it's Cesare. James is B dash. I am not angry. All right, everyone. Bye.